Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of my Unity Basics tutorial series, and today we're going to be learning about game objects. So if you closed out of Unity recently, or out of your project, Unity would have asked you to specify a name for your scene. And so basically what that is when you save your scene, it'll appear in the project view, or panel, and this is basically where your scene is stored. So let's say if you have multiple scenes, you can basically double click on each, and let's use the instance of different levels. So if you have level 1, level 2, level 3, you can double click on the different ones and they will both show up different, like maps or whatever. So you can also do that in your game later on using code or scripting to transition, like pressing a button. We'll get into that later on. So, game objects. Before we do that, we have to learn how to navigate through the scene view. So you can simply hold down right click and use the WASD keys to basically like hover around or freely move around. And you can hold down the mouse wheel to like pan around. And if you want to select multiple objects, you can hold down left click and go over the objects, and you'll select those that are in the area that you selected. And yeah, you can also use Alt to look around. Hold Alt and hold down left click to move around. You can also use right click to zoom. Yeah, there's many ways of navigating. I usually just use the WASD or the mouse wheel, or you can also scroll with the mouse wheel to zoom in also. So yeah, and so game objects. So let's say we create a game object. So these are all game objects. It's basically everything in your scene is a game object, and every game object, pretty much every game object has a transform. So a transform is basically its position, rotation, and scale in your project. So you can modify that with the position tool, the position modifier. So with the Y, Z, X axes, and this is 3D. And there's also 2D, which is just X and Y. But 3D adds another axis called the Z, which is the depth. So that's basically the difference between 3D and 2D. Adds another like dimension to it. And yeah, you can also modify it with the rotation modifier here. Just simply like this. And scale, same thing. And this is for UI elements, which is basically like the buttons and sliders on your screen, like the HUD in like different FPS games or whatever, like your pause button and everything. That's basically use this to edit those, but that's a different thing. This is basically your pan thing, which is the middle mouse button. And so components. This is these are different components. So this is the box collider, which is basically things can collide with this. And you can add components. There's different categories, or you can search up one for specifically rigid body. Then it will come up. And you can also remove a component by going to this little gear symbol and pressing remove component. And what you most likely would want to do when you start a new project or a new game, to center the floor, the ground. What you would do is to put in 0, 0, 0 in all of the position values, or you can simply go to this gear and press reset, which will put it back in its default position, rotation, and scale. So that's just a quick tip. And let's use the light component. For example, this will add a light to our game object. But you wouldn't really want to do it this way. You would want to create a light, point light, and put it under or put it as a child of the cube game object, and you would have a light here, and all these components have different properties, different settings. They're all different. I can't go over all of them. Obviously, there's so many. 2D and 3D combined, there's like a bunch. But yeah, so let's talk about the empty game object, which would be used for like raycasting. We'll learn about that later. You could use this for like waypoints in an AI system. This is what I would use it for. So it's just like nothing. You can use this as like I said, in AI, like a waypoint for an enemy to go to. Put it in front of your gun in an FPS so it knows where to shoot from. That's basically what a raycast, when you would use a raycast in an FPS game. So that's basically just a brief overview of that. It only had a transform. So let's talk about the hierarchy parent and child aspect. So as I was talking about the light, so let's just use that instance again. So let's use a point light. This is not parented to the cube, so it won't move with the cube. So if I put this as a parent, not a parent, a child of the cube, and the cube is the parent, I could basically move the cube and it would also move the children with it. So that's useful. You're going to use that a lot, especially with organizing your hierarchy. So let's say let's say we have a bunch of I don't know. Let's have a whole bunch of spheres in the game, and you don't want this to be you never want your hierarchy to be crowded with game objects. And I'm basically duplicating these by doing Control D. You can also right click and press duplicate, but you can just do Control D. It's way easier. And so you don't want to you want to group it together. This is where you would use an empty game object, and you would hold. This is another tip. You hold Shift. You can group them all together at the same time, and you would put it as a child of the empty game object and put spheres, and there you go. So now you just simply move this and move all of them together. So that's also a useful tip that you're gonna use later on, or hopefully use. So that's the parent and child. And now here's some recommendations for your project or your Unity to look like. So I recommend making a layout. It's very useful. So what I would do is I would go to this little icon here and go to one column layout. This makes it a lot easier to see, in my opinion. That's personal preferences. In my opinion, is too big. Like, it's kind of hard to see what's in here because this is so small. But it also has to do with my monitor, my computer screen size. So if you have a bigger computer screen, then I don't think that would be a problem. But also a good tip is, let's say this is all the way out there and you can't find it. You could also reset it to the middle, or you can simply select it and press F, and it would focus automatically to it. So that's also very useful. And one thing I definitely recommend, so let's say I go back to the default layout, is to make your game view like right next to your scene view, so you can see what's happening in both views. So let's put this back to origin point, so now I can see what's happening in the game view, what the player's going to see. So that's also very useful. So that concludes this. It's a little bit longer, but it's also very important to know about game objects and components before we get into building things. So yeah, I hope this helped, and tell me what you want to learn, and see you next time.